Yeah, I think that many of the problems that we have in Washington right now, if you trace it back, ultimately the problem comes from the influence peddling that's going on in Washington right now. And this is I think it's a cancer on how Washington works, and it's distorting the decision making that's happening up there, and it's getting inside the heads of members of Congress, and it's causing decisions to be made that are rash, and it's causing legislation to go through that's bad for this country. And the question is, how do you actually get at this? Now, I think that what I mentioned earlier of flattening the corporate tax code, I think that will be one way to structurally get at this, because if you take away the opportunity for loopholes to be inserted into the corporate tax code, well, that'll eliminate a big part of K Street up there, because that's what a lot of these folks do, is go ask for favors to get inserted into the corporate tax code. I think if you eliminate earmarks, even though, and we've made some progress on this front, but by eliminating earmarks, a lot of people say it'll help reduce the deficit, which is actually, it will, but it's actually a drop in the bucket. So I wouldn't do it for that reason. I would do it for the reason of getting corruption out of Washington, because that's another thing that lobbyists do, is they go around and they ask for earmarks. I think if you cut it out, and I think what we need to do is systematically identify the core sources of the corruption that goes up in Washington and get it out. Now, if you try to do it in a sledgehammer fashion by just saying you know lobbyists can't lobby or something like that, I think you run into constitutional issues, and I think we need to find ways to structurally reduce the incentives and the ability of special interests to lobby Congress. And I think if we can do that effectively, we will be able to reduce the influence peddling in Washington.
Thank you. Tom Hill?
Yes, my position is I simply will not participate in that process. And I support term limits, and I want a law passed that says when a congressman retires, he has to get out of Washington. Okay? He can't hang around as a lobbyist. That's exactly what he sure is doing. He's retiring. He said to spend more time with his family. But in fact, it's coming out now that he's going to be a lobbyist. All right? These lobbyists make fantastic amounts of money, and the temptation is very great. So we need a law to stop that. We need term limits. And I would use a sledgehammer. Okay, if it's available, whatever it takes to stop this. The money is so powerful; these people cannot turn it down, and they talk in generalities when they're seeking election. And I voted for Schumer because I thought he was going up there and stop this corruption. And man, he's taken an average of $1 million per year in money from lobbyists. $1 million a year for over $5 million now, and he says, "Well, it's for my campaign." Well. All right, but whatever it is, he takes it, and $1.2 million the last year alone. I want to say also that we Democrats are not the only ones who are pushing for this. I mean, they're members of the Democrat Party are just as bad on this issue as Republicans. But there are some Republican congressmen up there who would stand with us on this issue. There's a Republican congressman named Jeff Flake from Arizona who fights these earmarks tooth and toenail. He's a good guy. We may not agree on a lot of things, but we would certainly agree on that. And I agree with Ron Paul on a number of issues too, and I think he explored this still in Congress. Sorry.
Tom, I'm going to have to cover up my notes while I'm making them because you seem to hit some of my points right before I stand up. I'm totally against all earmarks. There's a process called a budget that you ought to put your expenditures in. You shouldn't tack them on at the end just to get them in there for your district or for yourself. The influence peddling. The super PACs, totally against the super PACs. I think we've got a really messed up political system right now that allows that to happen, and we need to work on the process and revise the election system. Influence peddling. Why do you think we have influence peddling? Two reasons. One, you've got some greedy people up there that want to make some money, that gaming the system. And the other reason is you got a bunch of people up there that don't know what to do. They have no idea how to fix the problems we've got, so they've got to listen to others. And that's why people come in and talk to them. That's why you got the lobbyists to come in there. What causes this? Professional politicians. Ones that get up there and they are professional at being a politician. They don't know how to do anything else. That's why Tom and I are in favor of term limits. to get rid of the professional politicians and get a fresh group of people up there with fresh ideas, problem solvers, that'll get up there, turn things around, and they know they're going to go back to their families. This is what our founding fathers did. They would be stunned to know there's such a thing as a professional politician. They had families and homes, and they couldn't wait to get back to them. And that's what we need once again up there. People who want to go up and serve. Not make money, but serve, and then go home to their families. Thank you.
Well, as the resident former lobbyist up here on the panel, guess which side of this I'm going to come down on. Okay, the lobbying is protected by the First Amendment. The ability to redress for a grievance was something that our founding fathers built into our system. Unfortunately, I do have to agree that it has gotten out of hand. But transversely, and unfortunately again, everything that we do in Congress has an unintended effect. And that's what the lobbyists are supposed to be dealing with. Lobbyists deal with the unintended consequences of law. So now I'll get off that soapbox and go to, super PACs, bad idea. The problem lies in the fact that these campaigns are very expensive. You don't always get the best candidate for the job. You get the guy who raises the most money or the guy who can peddle the most influence. And I firmly believe that has to stop. Unfortunately, we haven't devised a very good way to stop that at the moment. So I'm against earmarks, pro-lobbying, and I believe it's an imperfect system and we need to fix it. But just like freedom of speech, we've learned to live with it and we'll continue to learn to live with it until we come up with something better.
Well, I have come up with something better. When candidates tell you that, we can't fix public financing, we can't fix campaign financing, they're overlooking the fact they can fix their own campaigns. From the outset, I've told people I will not take money from corporations or corporate PACs. Government should not be for sale. When I get to Washington, I will never meet behind closed doors with lobbyists. Yes, lobbyists have every right to talk to our elected officials, just as citizens have every right. But if lobbyists are going to come in representing corporations, which are collections of people, then I think the news media ought to be there as well. One of the things we've talked about the founding here, and one of the things that we lose track of talking about the founding of this country is that we fought a war to throw off the power of corporations. The East India Company was the problem. It was a big part of the problem we had with Britain. We threw $1 million worth of tea, in modern figures, over the side of a boat in Boston Harbor to protest that. In early America, corporations could only exist for 7 years before they had to once again justify their existence. We give corporation owners, the investors, exemption from liability for the corporation because they do something good for us. They accomplish something we couldn't do ourselves. A railroad, for instance. It's gotten way out of hand. Corporations are running the shop in Washington. Our elected leaders have sold out, and I will never sell out. I will never do anything that violates the good of the people in this district. I will work for the people, not for some corporation. Thank you.
I'm getting your blue star and the red star mixed up here.
You got peanut butter in my chocolate.
I heard on radio the other day that Senator, I think it was Durbin, spent half a day, 3 times a week, out of his office, in the office provided by the Democrat Party, to make phone calls for his constituents so he can raise money. And some days he spends all day doing that, 2 or 3 days a week. That's not a good thing. It's actually, I think, a reflection of the corruption of the whole system, of the failure of Americans, all of us, to live up to the visions of the founders when it comes to what this country is supposed to be all about. If a U.S. senator has to spend that much time raising money, he's not spending enough time worrying about us. And it's our fault. There's no easy fix to this because it's now ingrained so deeply that we can't really do anything about professional politicians, except elect people who are dedicated public servants. Not in the context of politicians, but somebody like me who spent 25 years in the military and 20 years in this community working on issues relating to children and other things that make this community wonder how it's so different on one side of the railroad track from the other. This kind of stuff takes leadership, not partisanship. Partisanship got us into this mess. The only thing that can get us out of it is a rekindling of the American spirit, the one that we got from the founders, the one that we saw again in the war, World War II, the one that we see today if we think about the people that are overseas fighting and dying again. We have to find people like that, people who really reflect our character and send them to Congress. I've already done all the things that the people here are talking about, and I've done it a long time. There aren't any special qualifications to get there, but that's the kind of serious thought you ought to give to how we fix a problem. It is the American character that will allow us to do that.